Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into Bitcoin. And, it's fascinating and honestly kind of confusing sometimes. But, you've sent in articles, news, even a podcast, and they all want to know one thing. Will Bitcoin be for everybody? Or will it just end up controlled by, governments and institutions?
It's the question right now. And honestly, it's being debated like crazy. What's really interesting is we're watching this whole thing play out like right now. I mean, governments and big institutions are making some serious moves.
Yeah, like those proposals, in Missouri and Utah to create Bitcoin reserve funds. At the state level, it's not just a fringe idea anymore, huh?
Not at all. Nope. The U.S. Treasury is even looking at a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Imagine maybe 2% of U.S. reserves going into Bitcoin.
Wow.
And then there's Senator Lummis with the Bitcoin Act, proposing we buy 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years, and then hold on to it for at least 20.
1 million Bitcoin. That's just hard to even imagine. Why would governments want to stockpile Bitcoin like that? I thought the whole point was to be decentralized.
Well, the people who are for it, they say it's a way to protect against inflation, especially with all the worry about, the dollar and other currencies losing value. Plus, they say it could help shrink our national debt if Bitcoin goes up.
So it's a gamble on Bitcoin, but with the government behind it. But did that contradict the whole decentralized thing? I mean, that's what made Bitcoin so attractive in the first place, right?
Exactly. That's the big tension. Because if governments start hoarding Bitcoin, will regular people even be able to get it?
Kind of like what happened with gold in the U.S. back in the 1930s.
Yeah, with Executive Order 6102.
For like 40 years, U.S. citizens couldn't even own gold, right? It was all controlled by the government.
Right.
It's kind of scary to think about that happening with Bitcoin. Could it?
Well, one of the sources you sent, Ryan Chow, he's the CEO of Solve Protocol. He says if governments just lock away Bitcoin in some central bank vault, it could become the new gold, centralized and controlled, which would mean less access for everyone else, and it could even hurt all the innovation happening in, like, the decentralized finance space.
Okay, so how do we stop that from happening?
Chow's idea is open Bitcoin reserves. Basically, they're like public and transparent, decentralized. It's about pushing back against, all that power going to the governments.
Open Bitcoin reserve. So it's kind of like a public good?
Yeah, exactly. And it's already happening. One of your sources mentions the Rainforest Foundation U.S. They raised 100 Bitcoin as a reserve to help protect the Amazon rainforest.
That's a pretty cool example. So this isn't just theory. People are actually doing it.
Yeah, they are. And it shows how Bitcoin can be used for, good things, social good. And it gives people a way to be part of initiatives that can make a difference. It's a different way to think about what Bitcoin can do. It's not just about, making money or speculating.
Definitely. It's like we're seeing two different paths for Bitcoin, right?
Absolutely. And you see this tension even more when you look at the rise of Bitcoin DeFi, decentralized finance. That's another piece of the puzzle.
Okay, hold on. Before we get into DeFi, I want to ask about another way people are investing in Bitcoin, those Bitcoin bond ETFs. What are those?
So that's where traditional finance kind of meets crypto. These ETFs, they let you invest in Bitcoin indirectly through bonds that are issued by companies that have, a bunch of BTC.
So you're not actually buying Bitcoin. You're buying a bond tied to its value. Why do that?
Well, a few reasons. First, it's about not putting all your eggs in one basket, right? You diversify. Plus, you get some Bitcoin exposure without having to mess around with, like, setting up a crypto wallet or dealing with exchanges.
Right, that makes sense. It's familiar, especially for people who are used to, like, traditional investments.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get regular interest payments from the bonds, which can be nice, especially when the market's all over the place.
But it's still connected to Bitcoin's price, right? So it's still risky.
Sure, there's always risk. The value of the bonds, it's linked to Bitcoin's price, which could be really volatile. And you got to think about the company that issued the bond. Like, are they doing okay financially? If they have problems, it could hurt the bond, even if Bitcoin's doing fine.
Gotcha. So it's not just a set it and forget it investment.
Nope, you still got to do your homework. But these Bitcoin bond ETFs, they offer kind of a unique mix. Opportunity and risk, and we're seeing some cool examples like El Salvador's volcano bonds.
Those are the ones that use Bitcoin to fund development and, like, use volcanic energy for mining Bitcoin, right?
That's the one. It's a bold move. Definitely got everyone in the crypto world talking. It shows how countries are trying out Bitcoin in new ways.
It's amazing how much Bitcoin has changed. It used to be this niche thing, and now governments are considering it as a reserve asset. And we have all these new financial products popping up.
Yeah, it shows it's here to stay. It has the potential to really change traditional finance, but it also raises even more questions about where Bitcoin's headed.
Especially with this Bitcoin DeFi movement.
Right. That's where things get even more interesting and maybe even more important for everyday people.
So we've talked about governments and institutions looking at Bitcoin, but what about the rest of us? Where does this Bitcoin DeFi fit in?
That's where things get really, really interesting. See, Bitcoin DeFi, it's about taking decentralized finance, lending, borrowing, and even more complex stuff and bringing it to Bitcoin. It's like putting your Bitcoin to work instead of just, holding it.
So instead of just like sitting in my digital wallet, I could use my Bitcoin to earn interest or do other, financial stuff, all without a bank.
Exactly. And one of the hottest trends right now in Bitcoin DeFi is staking. Imagine you lock up your Bitcoin and it helps secure a Bitcoin layer 2 network, and you get rewarded with more Bitcoin. It's sort of like earning interest. You're basically getting paid to help keep the network safe and stable.
Hold on. So I could earn passive income just by holding Bitcoin and staking it? That sounds pretty amazing, especially with how bad interest rates are at banks these days.
It's definitely getting a lot of attention. And not just from everyday investors. Big institutional investors are getting in on it too. Some people think the whole Bitcoin staking market could be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. We're talking serious money here.
Wow, hundreds of billions? That's crazy. So Bitcoin DeFi is like opening up all these new ways for people to like manage their money and grow their wealth. But can you give me an example? Like how does this staking thing actually work?
Sure, let's say you have some Bitcoin you want to stake. You pick a platform or a protocol that offers staking. You commit your Bitcoin to that platform, and they use it to, validate transactions, secure the network, and in return, you get rewards based on how much you staked. It's like a high-tech, decentralized savings account, kind of.
That's really cool. It sounds pretty straightforward, but I'm guessing there are risks too, right?
Of course, nothing's completely risk-free. With staking, the biggest risk is, well, Bitcoin itself. Its price can be volatile, right? So if the price drops a lot, your rewards might not be worth as much as you hoped. And there's always the risk of choosing a platform that's not secure, There have been hacks and scams in DeFi, so it's important to do your research.
So it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. You have to be careful. But for someone who's, willing to learn and take some calculated risks, it seems like Bitcoin DeFi has a lot to offer.
Yeah, definitely. And the innovation in this space, it's incredible. There are new concepts and technologies popping up all the time.
Like that restaking thing I keep hearing about, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. Can you explain what that is?
It might sound futuristic, but it's a really smart idea. Imagine you've already staked your Bitcoin on one platform, but then you find another one with better rewards. With restaking, you can take the tokens that represent your staked Bitcoin on that first platform and use them as collateral to stake on the second platform.
Wait, so you can like double dip, earn rewards from two platforms at the same time?
Exactly. Restaking lets you maximize your earnings, get the most out of your staked Bitcoin. It's one of the ways that Bitcoin DeFi is really pushing the boundaries of, traditional finance.
Wow, you've officially blown my mind. Are there any examples of these restaking platforms, like real-world ones that are doing well?
Yeah, for sure. Eigenlayer is one project that's getting a lot of attention. It's built on Ethereum and uses something called wrapped Bitcoin as collateral.
Wrapped Bitcoin. Okay, now I'm lost. What is that?
Think of it like a digital version of Bitcoin on the Ethereum blockchain. It lets Bitcoin interact with Ethereum's DeFi ecosystem, which opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
So it's like a bridge between Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Exactly. And projects like Eigenlayer, they're using that bridge to build new, innovative DeFi products that just wouldn't be possible otherwise.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's like we're watching a whole new financial system being born, one that's based on decentralized technologies and, gives individuals more control over their money.
You got it. Bitcoin DeFi is all about empowering individuals, and it's attracting a ton of interest and investment from individuals and institutions.
So this isn't just for like techie crypto people. There are real implications here for everyone.
Absolutely. And another thing that could really boost Bitcoin DeFi is the rise of Bitcoin-backed ETFs that actually hold staked Bitcoin.
Wait, so you're saying I could invest in a regular ETF that like tracks staked Bitcoin so I wouldn't have to figure out all the technical stuff myself?
Exactly. There's already a Bitcoin staking ETF in Europe, and people think similar ETFs could be approved in the US pretty soon.
That would be huge. It would make Bitcoin DeFi way more accessible for everyone, really, even people who, might be intimidated by all the technical aspects.
Yeah, it could be a total game changer, and it could bring a flood of money into Bitcoin DeFi.
Okay, you've convinced me. I need to learn more about this Bitcoin DeFi, but before I go down a research rabbit hole, can you give me like a few key takeaways? What are the most important things to keep an eye on in the coming years?
Well, one thing to watch is the growth of liquid staking tokens. These tokens represent your stake in a protocol, but unlike traditional staking, you can trade them on decentralized exchanges or use them as collateral. It's about making staked Bitcoin more liquid, basically.
So I can earn staking rewards and still have the flexibility to like trade or use my staked Bitcoin. Best of both worlds.
You got it. Liquid staking is opening up all sorts of new possibilities. Another trend is the rise of Bitcoin-native DeFi ecosystems on Layer 2 networks. We're seeing projects like RSK, Merlin, and Stacks building out their own DeFi platforms with like decentralized exchanges, lending protocols, even derivatives.
Derivatives, you mean those complex financial things that we're involved in, like the 2008 financial crisis?
Yeah, but these are decentralized derivatives. They're built on blockchain, so it's all open and transparent. It's a sign of how much more mature and sophisticated Bitcoin DeFi is becoming. It's not just basic stuff anymore.
Okay, that's both exciting and a little bit scary, but I guess that's how it always is with new things, right?
For sure. And that kind of brings us back to our original question. Will Bitcoin be a tool for everyone, or will it end up controlled by, the state?
Right. So after all this talk about DeFi, what do you think now? Will Bitcoin empower individuals or will it just become another tool for, the powerful?
It's really hard to say for sure right now. The future of Bitcoin is being decided as we speak, and the choices we make now are going to have a huge impact.
So we're at a crossroads.
We are, and it's important. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be an exciting ride.
I couldn't agree more. Now, before we finish up, there's one more thing we haven't talked about, the environment. That's a pretty controversial topic when it comes to Bitcoin, isn't it?
Definitely. It's a crucial issue and one that deserves serious thought.
So let's dive into that. What do our sources have to say about Bitcoin being, sustainable, especially with everyone wanting to be more green these days? All right, let's talk about, the elephant in the room, Bitcoin and the environment. It's a hot topic, that's for sure.
Yeah, it gets people riled up. Bitcoin using so much energy, it's a big worry, especially now with climate change and all.
I remember those headlines saying Bitcoin mining used as much energy as entire countries.
Yeah, those were a bit dramatic, but it is true that Bitcoin mining, especially the proof of work kind, it uses a lot of power.
So is that it then? Is Bitcoin just bad for the environment? Can it even work in a sustainable future?
It's not that simple. One thing to think about is the energy mix for Bitcoin mining. It's changing. A lot of miners now, they're using renewable sources like hydro, solar, wind power.
Oh, so it's not all those coal plants everyone pictures.
Nope. Some studies even say Bitcoin mining is actually helping renewable energy grow faster.
Really? That's interesting. Like Bitcoin is creating demand for cleaner energy.
Exactly. And when we're thinking about, how much energy Bitcoin uses, we got to compare it to the good things it can do, like giving financial services to people who can't get a bank account.
Right. It's about balance. And we talked about the Rainforest Foundation. They're using Bitcoin for conservation.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of Bitcoin doing good for the planet.
It shows that technology, it can be used in good ways and bad ways. It depends on what we do with it.
Totally. And I think as Bitcoin keeps changing, we'll see more clever solutions, to lessen its impact on the environment, but still keep all the good stuff.
Wow, this deep dive has been amazing. We've learned so much about where Bitcoin might be headed, like its potential to be a reserve asset, that whole exciting DeFi world, why open financial systems matter, and even, how it mimics the environment.
It's been a wild ride for sure. Looking at Bitcoin from all these angles, we talked about history, like when the U.S. government took control of gold to see what can go wrong with centralization. We saw how Bitcoin can make a real positive difference in the world. And we discussed how important it is for everyone to have access, so everyone benefits.
Yeah, and one thing's clear, what happens to Bitcoin next? It's not decided yet. There's so much happening, and the choices we make right now, they'll determine what path Bitcoin takes.
Yeah, that's what makes this such a pivotal time for Bitcoin. Will it be a tool that helps people, or will it end up being controlled by just a few?
If there's one thing our listeners should take away from all this, it's that Bitcoin's story. It's still being written, and we all have a part in shaping it.
Don't just take our word for it. Go out there and learn more, research, make up your own mind. The future of finance is something we're all part of.
That's all for today's deep dive into Bitcoin. We covered a ton, but hopefully it gave you some new ideas and got you thinking.
Keep learning, keep digging, keep asking those tough questions. Bitcoin's changing all the time, so there's always more to discover.
Until next time, keep diving deep. C10X.